Let me over to you, Amy.
Thank you so much for the intro, Claire. Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you all here. As Claire mentioned, I'm the FFLP Alumni Coordinator. I think I've spoken with most of you over email or through Mighty Networks or various different channels, LinkedIn, all of that at some point. So yeah, thank you so much for coming here today. We are so excited about the launch of FFLP Alumni. It's been a long time coming. As we all know, the future of gender equality is something that we all care quite deeply about here in Western Australia in particular, and FFLP Alumni is just another avenue for us to really try and make a positive impact to what that future looks like. But it's also offering a fantastic way for us to connect with other like-minded industry professionals too. So we can foster this incredible community of powerhouse women who, share the same values and, and kind of have the same goals and that type of thing. So as we know, we've got Mighty Networks set up. So I'm going to take you through all of that in a moment, just to give you a bit of an overview over where to find things, what the main points are, I suppose, to consider. But before that, I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview over like our events that we've got coming up. So of course, we've got Claire's webinar today. We've also got 2 more exciting webinars scheduled for October. The details of those are in Mighty Networks. And soon to be announced, we've got our FFLP Alumni Sundowner, which will be a really cool in-person event. We're going to be having it at the Globe, and it's going to be on Friday, the 15th of November from 5 p.m. So if you did want to jot that into your calendars, block it out now ahead of time. You're absolutely more than welcome. But yeah, let me share my screen and I will show you all things Mighty Networks. Now, little asterisk, this is obviously like the desktop version or the PC version. But if you haven't already, there is an app as well that you can download onto your phone, which I personally find way more convenient. I can just access any updates, anything on the go. I don't have to log into anything on my laptop. So I would highly recommend downloading the app if you haven't already. But this is our wonderful Mighty Networks. So it kind of works a little bit like, I guess, a bit of a LinkedIn, but mixed with like an online resources kind of platform, I guess. So heading to our FFLP alumni discussion, this is, I suppose, your newsfeed. This has got all of the updates. Everything you need to know is all in here. So we've got a few different posts. One thing to quickly note on this one as well, one of the upcoming webinars is with Tech Resources, who are a recruitment agency here in Perth. So if you do have any burning questions around what you want to know about landing a job, getting the inside scoop from a recruiter, please jot down any any questions in the comments here. But yeah, we've got all of our updates in here. Under the events tab, we've got those upcoming webinars that I mentioned. We've, of course, as well got the gala, which is very exciting. So that's for the conclusion of our 2024 signature program. Of course, again, anyone is welcome to buy a ticket to that. We'd love to see your beautiful faces. So we've got all of the updates in here. We'll be popping the Sundowner in here shortly. Under online resources on the left-hand menu here, this is all of our professional and personal development resources. Now, it is quite a lot, but I promise you there are some golden nuggets in here, some fantastic insights that have been so generously shared with us from some pretty incredible people. So have a look in here. All you need to do is just click on it, and then you can kind of go through all of the different options there. If you can't see the resources, you should be able to add yourself to the space by clicking onto online resources and then there'll be like a little button here. If you can't see that, just send us a message through Mighty Networks. You can just send Future Female Leaders Admin a message and we'll be able to help you out. But yeah, this is hugely valuable resources here. So definitely go and have a little look. There'll be something there for everyone. And excitingly, here is how you book your one-on-one career conversation calls. So this is not just open to our alumni, but of course we do strongly encourage our alumni to book these with our industry insiders, our industry professionals who are offering up their time to give you a bit of insight, maybe some one-on-one ongoing mentoring as well. But yeah, if you wanted to book a call, all you would need to do is head to the members page, find a profile of someone that really interests you or something that really maybe aligns. All you would do is click on view profile, maybe have a look at the description, see if that aligns with maybe what you're interested in. And then you need to head to their Calendly or Google Calendar, just their calendar link in their bio, and then follow the prompts to then go and book in a session with them. Now, it's just really important as well, if you do book a session, please bring 3 questions you want to ask to the session just to really kick off the conversation. But most importantly as well, these sessions are not just available to our alumni, they're also for other industry insiders to connect with each other and really start to leverage the incredible knowledge and skills that we already have within the community, because as we know, we can all learn so much from each other. Our learning journey is never ending. So please make the most of that and yeah, connect with each other. And yeah, I think, to be honest, that is probably everything that I'd want to mention about Mighty Networks. At this point, does anybody have any questions? I know that that was a lot of information to just throw at you, so you can always look under welcome instructions, and that's got a little bit of a summary of everything I just went through. But yeah, if there's any questions, just let me know. Aside from that, Claire, was there anything else that I needed to mention? I think that's pretty much it.
No, I think you've given a good insight into the platform. I think probably the biggest thing just to remind people of, and you've already said this, Amy, is the alumni community is really designed for all women at all stages of their careers. So we're in a beautiful position now where with our signature program, which you've all been mentors for, we have enough past participants now to justify creating the alumni. But it also means that we've got nearly 4 years of mentors and women in industry in the alumni community as well. So I really encourage all of you, irrespective of where you're at in your careers, to leverage the community, because the number of women that I speak to on almost a daily basis who will say things to me like, I really wish I could find more, women in leadership or women in my industry to connect with and just like talk to about the shared challenges that we have, never ceases to amaze me. And this is a platform created exactly for that. So even though I know it might feel a little bit like speed dating or a little bit like you're going on a blind date when you just look at somebody's profile and you're like, oh, I like the look of that, I'm going to book in some time. I know that that might feel a little bit strange, but please know that everybody in the community, everybody in our alumni network is there because they want to be there. Like, we don't force anybody to be here. Every woman that's here is here because they want to connect with other people and they want to share their own insights and learn from each other. So if you ever have any hesitancy or worry about just reaching out to somebody to book their time, please don't, because that is actually part and parcel of what the community is about. So that's probably the only other thing I think to add. As well as if you've got any ideas or topics that you think would be really valuable for us to share with the community, perhaps either things that you feel are a good discussion conversation, perhaps things you're noticing even within your own organizations and you'd like a platform to talk about it a little bit more, please let us know as well, because we are working with our sponsor partners to come up with these webinars, but we want to hear from the people that are coming to the webinars as well, what it is you want to learn. So as Amy said, one of the ones we've got coming up is very much around like, what are the myth busters and questions that we can have answered in terms of being able to sell ourselves in job interviews, being able to get the roles that we want, those sorts of things. And then the other one is hosted by RSM, and that one is really around helping us invest our money, understand our money better, and what are some of the questions that we might be holding that we want to ask, whether it's about shares or super and everything in between. So those are the first two, but as we go into 2024, we will be hosting them ideally every month or every second month. So I would love to hear from you with your ideas. Anything else you want to add, Amy, before I jump into today's topic?
No, it's all yours, Claire.
Wonderful. All right, let's kick off. So again, I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna jump in and out a little bit with you. Again, I'm going to use the chat a little bit as well. But today's topic, I think, is a very meaty one, and so I'm doing it in about 30 minutes in probably what is a lifelong topic. So bear with me for that. Shameless plug before we get started. A lot of today's material and a lot of today's conversation comes from a book that I have written, which is about to drop in all bookstores and airports from next week. So if you like elements of what we're talking about today and you're like, I need to dig into that a little bit more, you will be able to get your copy of Less Hustle, More Happy from next week. Thank you for all of the emojis. Didn't even know that you could do that. That's very exciting. So again, to remind you, if you want to turn your cameras off or anything like that, you're welcome to, because we are recording the session. But for anyone who's on the call who doesn't know me, I think everybody does, but if there is anybody that doesn't, my name is Claire Seeber. I am the co-founder of the Future Female Leaders Program, but I am also a leadership and career coach, speaker, and trainer, and I have the absolute pleasure of working with individuals and organizations all over the world. So I help organizations keep their best talent. How do we grow them and nurture them? And I help individuals be the best talent that everybody wants on their teams. And today's workshop is really around your career, your way, and how can we help you build the foundations of a sustainable career. And when I was thinking about this workshop, and I'll share my screen in a moment, but when I was thinking about this workshop, it was really interesting because I knew that we would have such a variety of people on the call, from some of our past participants who have just finished high school, all the way through to some of us that have had careers for a little while. We've had very different experiences. And so how do I create something that feels relevant to everybody? And then I realized that stepping back or zooming out on our careers and actually taking a moment to pause and breathe and think about what is important to us is relevant irrespective of where you're at in your career. So for some of the ladies on the call today that maybe have heard some of the things I'm going to mention before, like self-awareness and knowing what's important to you, I still really invite you to challenge yourself and ask yourself about when was the last time that, even though maybe I've heard of career values before, or I've heard of this idea of defining success for yourself, when was the last time I actually stopped and checked in on where I'm at with that? So that's probably what I really want to plant the seed of today, is that irrespective of where you're at in your career, these kinds of thoughts and seed planting opportunities are really relevant. So let me share my screen with you. I'll bring that up. And Amy, I'll just get you to keep an eye on the chat and just shout out to me if there's anything that you feel like I'm missing. All right. So I'm going to zoom past myself, but I want you to think about this for a moment. You get, on average, 25,550 days on Earth, if we are lucky enough to live to the global average age of 70. That's it. And 2/3 of that time, you will likely be working in some capacity. So I want you for a moment to just think about, and if you've got a notepad or you've got a journal or you want to type it in your laptop, up to you. But I want you to think about, what is it that, beyond just paying your bills, what is it that you want to get out of your working life? What is it that feels important to you? So I'm going to give you just a minute to think about that and perhaps make some notes on that for yourself. If you want to pop it into the chat, you're also welcome to do that. Okay, now this is a big question and probably not what most of us thought we might be sitting down on a Wednesday afternoon thinking about. But I think it's something that is really important for us, again, irrespective of where we're at in our careers, because the truth is as well, what we want to get out of our careers, what we want to get out of our time at work will change over our working lives. The things that were important to me 15 years ago are not necessarily the things that are important to me now. They are not the same values. If you would have asked me 15 years ago what was important to me in my career and what I wanted to get out of it, it probably would have been the fanciest title and the corner office. Those things aren't things that light me up anymore, and they're not things that are important to me. Now I measure things more around, can I actually make a meaningful contribution? Can I have an impact? Am I enthusiastic about the work that I'm doing? Right? And absolutely, we need to be paid our worth, and that will be a topic that we'll be talking about at some point as well. But beyond those things, why do we get up in the morning? And one of the formulas that I have come up with to help us work this out for ourselves, but also for anybody on the call who leads a team or an organization, how you can also work with your people to engage them even more, is through this 3E formula to a sustainable career. And I believe that a sustainable career is made up of effort plus expertise plus enthusiasm. And I'll say that again. A happy career, a happy and sustainable career, is made up of effort plus expertise plus enthusiasm. And I'll go through each one of those in a moment and let you start thinking about where you feel you might sit with that. When we talk about the idea of what high targeted effort actually looks like, right? And I really want to emphasize this idea of targeted effort, because for many of us, we feel like we're putting in a hell of a lot of effort. I'm working really hard. I'm hustling. I'm grinding. I'm going from conversation to conversation, meeting to meeting, task to task. But how targeted are my inputs? And are my inputs actually translating to the outcomes or the outputs or the outcomes that I actually want to achieve? So similarly, for some of our more junior members on the call, if you're now starting to go to uni or you're going to TAFE, whatever it might be, you're starting your first jobs, we can get really busy being busy. But how targeted are our efforts? And when we're operating from a place of high targeted effort, it looks like this. It looks like we know what great is for us, right? We know what success is. And we also understand what success is for the role that we're in, the team that we're in, and the organization that we might be working for. We know who we've got to engage with and how we've got to engage them. And what I mean by that is we are able to strategically network. And when we make sure that we target those efforts with those relationships and cultivating the right ones in mind as well. It also means that when we're operating from a place of high targeted effort, that we're operating from a space of being responsive instead of just reactive. So instead of that feeling, which I'm sure we've all experienced before, where I feel like I'm just being blown around in the breeze from task to task and meeting to meeting, I'm stopping, I'm taking a breath, and I'm asking myself the question of, with the time that I've got, what is the most important thing? And I'm responding to that accordingly. And then lastly, high targeted effort means, because I've taken that moment to stop, breathe, look around me, and ask the right questions, I'm able to get meaningful work done. Meaningful work for myself, meaningful work for my team, meaningful work for my university team, or meaningful work for my organization. But where we find people go wrong when it comes to effort is we put in a hell of a lot of effort, and then we get frustrated and exhausted and tired and burnt out and sometimes resentful when we feel like all of those efforts are not actually translating to the outcomes that we need them to or that we desire. So that's the first part of the formula, is how can we think more about what targeted effort looks like for ourselves? The second part of this formula for a sustainable and a happy career is our expertise. And there's not a person on this call who doesn't have unique strengths, skills, talents, passions, experiences that are unique to you. And one of the things that I observe, particularly as women, is we have a tendency to downplay our strengths, and we make assumptions that the strengths that I have are not valuable or important because surely everybody has that as a strength. So things like high empathy, things like ability to be strong collaborators inside organizations and connect people for a common goal and for a common outcome. These are not skills and strengths that everybody actually has. If they did, I wouldn't have a job or a business. So I can guarantee you that if these are things that you are good at, these are strengths that we've got to understand more about ourselves in order to know them, in order to own them, in order to leverage them, and in order to drive change and enthusiasm for ourselves and our teams and whatever it is that we're doing. So your expertise is so much more than just your resume. The expertise that you bring to your job, to your career, to your studies are made up of all of the experiences that you've had. For any of the working mothers on this call, your experience and the expertise that you've gained through those experiences are enormous, and they've shaped you to be who you are and the value that you add to any organization. But I don't think we stop and think about what these things actually are. Am I confident enough to own them? And how do I leverage them more so that I feel better about what I'm doing? Because we know that when we play to our strengths, not only do we get outcomes more easily, but we enjoy what we're doing more. So I really invite you, off the back of today's call, if you can't say off the top of your head what your top 5 strengths are and how you use them day to day, that is a great place to start, is to think about what are they for you. Go out and get some feedback, get some insights from people if you need to, and then think about, how do I use those strengths more in my day-to-day to help me drive a career that feels good and enables me to get outcomes. So that is the second part of our formula. Our third part of the formula, and I'm going to show you what all of these look like in terms of our careers in a moment as well. But the third part of our formula is high enthusiasm. Now, people who are operating from a space of high enthusiasm, I want to be really, really clear with this. When I talk about high enthusiasm, I am not talking about toxic positivity. I am not talking about rolling around our lives with all of our relationships and saying good vibes only, or things like that all the time. We're all going to have moments in life that are difficult, and we are not going to be 100% motivated and enthusiastic every second of every day. We're human beings. We are not wired that way. But when we talk about a sustainable career and one that allows us to keep moving through those pain points or those tense days that we have, or those frustrating experiences that we have, being able to be enthusiastic in that because you know what lights you up and what it's all for, they help us manage those tough days a little bit more. So high enthusiasm looks like you are motivated from within. And what I mean by that is you know what your definition of success is for your career. And it will be totally different to the person's next to you. And that's okay because we are different human beings. And as I also said before, your definition of career success will change as you grow and as you get older and as different things in your life become more important. But when we operate from the outside in, meaning we let our parents, our friends, our organizations dictate what career success is, that's where we start to find that things feel a bit icky, or they feel messy, or they feel unaligned, and we feel stuck. And that's not because there's anything wrong necessarily with what our parents think or our teams think or our organization thinks, but it is that we haven't defined what's important to us. So to be highly enthusiastic about our careers and for them to be sustainable, we've got to know what our career values are, what our definition of success is for you. And then we've got to be able to know our value and utilize it through the way that we operate. And doing these things increases engagement, it increases motivation, and it also allows us to operate more from a growth-oriented mindset as opposed to that place where everything just feels like it is a little bit sucky. And my argument is that a disengaged employee or a disengaged person in their job or in their career or in their studies is likely to also be a disengaged person in other parts of their life, because the two can bleed into each other. And so I am not at all saying that our careers have to be our lives. They don't at all. They do not at all. But what is really important is that you know for yourself why you go to work and what you want to get out of it. Even if it is that I want to go, I want to contribute, I want to try to get some outcomes, and then I want to get home so that I can spend that time with my family, with my children, and with the people that I care about. Even knowing that allows you to stay motivated and engage with the things that are really important to you. So this is what our formula is made up of. And I'm going to ask you in a moment, I'm not going to get you to pop it into the chat, but I am going to ask you to be honest with yourself around where you think you sit. Because that formula that I've just described to you translates to a happy career matrix, which is made up of enthusiasm and effort, as I've just described. And often what we see play out inside teams, inside organizations, at unis, in our lives in general, is that many people, most people actually, will fall into one of these four quadrants. They will fall into the category of a hoper, a hustler, a haphazard, or a happy. And where we want to be operating for sustainable careers is in the space of happy. So high targeted effort and high targeted enthusiasm. So when we operate in the space of a hoper is somebody that you might know, maybe you even work with them, and they are low on effort and low on enthusiasm. These are the kinds of people that they sit back and they wait. I'm going to sit back and wait for my manager to tell me what my development plan looks like. I'm going to wait for someone to tell me what training and development I should do. Or I'm going to wait for an opportunity and hope that it translates to something that maybe I want to do. Or I'm going to wait for my teacher or my lecturer or some of my buddies at university to tell me what I should do. And this is the space of hoping. It isn't the space of being engaged in your own life and your own career. It's a space on low targeted effort because we don't know what we're aiming for, and then low enthusiasm because we're sitting back waiting and hoping for other people to do it for us. Then when we come across to the right quadrant and we look at this idea of a hustler, and there may be a couple of you on the call that feel like this right now. I have felt like this before, 100%, where I feel like I am really high on effort. I'm slugging my guts out. I'm going from meeting to meeting, conversation to conversation. I'm working really damn hard. but I feel like I'm banging my head against a wall. And I feel like those efforts are not translating to the outcomes or the contribution, the meaningful contribution that I want them to. I'm working really hard. The inputs are there, the hours, the stress, the meetings, but the outcomes are not translating because I'm not targeting my efforts and my expertise through the right channels. And then, therefore, my enthusiasm is likely to be low. Maybe I don't know what success is for me or my team or my role. And therefore, I fall into this space of a hustler, which is not a sustainable foundation for a career. The third quadrant is the haphazard. Now, you may have also worked with these people before. You might have gone to school with these people. You might know these people. But this quadrant are where we're really high on enthusiasm, but we're low on targeted effort. Those are the kinds of people, they'll rock up into a meeting at work as an example, and they are like, yes, let's do it, team. I'm ready. I'm pumped. Let's rock, which is great. And we need that. We need that enthusiasm and that optimism. But what is often lacking with these people is the clarity on the outcome that we're trying to achieve and the targeted effort to get there. Either who do I need to build relationships with? What skills do I need to focus on a little bit more to get the delivery that I need? And that is where we end up in this space of a haphazard. Where we want to be, my friends, for a sustainable career is a space of happy, high on targeted effort. I know what I'm aiming for. I know who I need to bring along for the ride. I know how to translate my skills, my strengths, my expertise into outcomes. And I'm clear on who I am, the value that I bring, and what it's all for. And that is the space that allows us to keep showing up in those times that feel a little bit tough. And those times will come. For many of us, we're experiencing them right now. So I want to invite you for a moment. I'll leave this screen up for the next 30 seconds or so. And I want you to just take a moment and think about, where do you think that you sit right now? You don't have to pop it into the chat, but just think for a moment about where you find yourself. And the truth is, we can bounce around the happy career matrix in different phases of our careers and lives. I know that I have sat in probably almost every quadrant at some point. Where I want to be, though, is in that happy quadrant. So take a moment and check in with yourself around where you think you might be. All right, let's talk now about how do we actually get beyond hustle and hope? How do we make sure, and what do we need to consider for ourselves in order to continue to drive careers that aren't going to be easy, but they're going to be engaging and fulfilling for the reasons that are meaningful for you? Because to build a sustainable career, we've got to get beyond just hustle and hope. And what that looks like is a 5-part career success framework. And now, when I talk about a career success framework, it's really important that you know that it is success on your terms. What success is for you is different to me, and it's different to the person next to you. But in order to follow through on what we're defining success is, and in order to make our lives more enjoyable and more fulfilling when it comes to our careers, these are the things that we need to be really considerate of and making sure that we're tapping into in the way we show up for ourselves. So you can see here that I've got my 5-part career success framework for you. If you want to take a picture of this so that you can look back at it later, you are welcome to, or as you know, this will be being uploaded into the Mighty Networks community. But this pyramid here is made up of 5 parts. All of them are layers that support each other. None of them operate in isolation. None of them are something that we tick off and we say, well, I'm done with that now. I can move on to the next part. This pyramid for your sustainable career is about thinking, how am I considering all of these elements in the way that I show up for myself, but also for my teams or my organization? So naturally at the bottom, we've got self-awareness, vision, and mindset. In order to have a sustainable career, we've got to know ourselves. We've got to know what lights me up, what triggers me, what motivates me. When I'm stressed, what happens? When I'm having my very best days, what are the kinds of things that I'm doing? When I'm having my very worst days, what are the kinds of things that I'm doing? How does my mindset and the narratives that I tell myself contribute into the way that I show up? Getting curious about who you are is the best gift that you could ever give yourself. However, when we get so busy being busy, we often do not give ourselves the time, the respect, or the permission to do that enough. So I invite you to think about, how are you giving yourself the permission to think about what's your vision for yourself, for your life, for your career? What are some of the narratives, the self-talk, the self-doubt that might get in the way of you feeling like you can pursue that vision? And most importantly, what do I know about myself and what I bring to the table and the impact that that has on the people around me? Because that is the foundation of a strong and sustainable and a happy career. Because that then allows us to think about our brand. And there is not a person on this call who has not already got a brand. What we want to do is make sure that we're cultivating a brand that excites us and motivates us and is aligned with what we want to be known for. But again, if we're not clear on who we are, what we want to represent, and what we bring to the table, it's really hard to then demonstrate a brand that's aligned with those things. When we keep coming up this pyramid and we look at things like growth through relationships, this is your network. This is getting really deliberate and intentional around who are the people that you need to know? Who are the people who need to know you? Who are the people that can stretch you, challenge you, motivate you, encourage you, develop you? And how are you targeting your investment of time with them? We can accelerate our careers and drive far more fulfilling careers when we get really deliberate about the relationships that we invest in and the feedback that we listen to from different people. So that is why I've got that on here when we talk about a 5-part framework to your success. You've probably heard us say before that your network is your net worth. But when we get so busy being busy, relationships and the cultivation of those relationships are often the first thing that we let go. But they are often the thing that sees us getting the opportunities and the thing that sees us learning about ourselves, how we show up, and the impact that we have. So be really clear over the course of your career and whatever stage you are at to ask yourself the question of, when was the last time that I zoomed out and I looked at my network and those really pivotal people in my network and how I can invest in that relationship? When we think about performance currency, this is the part around how do we actually demonstrate our expertise in our jobs, in our careers, and that'll change along the way. But I really want you to think about whatever stage you are in your career, please, please, please don't fall into the outdated conventional habits of thinking that if I just keep working harder, that'll be the thing that sees me get ahead. Because that is advice that so many of us have had throughout our careers. And I'd like us to think more broadly and more deliberately. Now, when I talk about just working harder and harder and harder, I'm talking about not zooming out, not stopping and asking, is my hard work and my expertise actually translating to outcomes that are important for you, for your team, for your department, for your organization? Because just focusing on inputs and measuring your performance based on how hard you think you're working, as opposed to what impact am I having, what outcomes am I delivering, is a slippery slope. And it's what will lead to burnout, frustration, and resentment if we're not careful, all of which are things that are not a sustainable career made. And then lastly, future-proofing yourself. I really invite you to take the time where you can and build a habit. It doesn't have to be a time-consuming habit. A couple of minutes a day, a week even, where you are making sure that you are looking up and you are looking around you. Because sometimes we have a tendency in our careers to be so focused on the job at hand that we forget to consider our career in a holistic sense. And we forget that I've got a long working life ahead of me. And if I'm only focused on the task at hand or the job at hand, one day I might find that I look up and I look around me and the forest that I once relied on is gone. And I'm hanging on to that one tree that's left because I didn't take the time to make sure that I was aware of what was happening around me and the industry or the job pathway that I'm in for myself. So that is a lot of information to consider there, which is also why we record these, so that you can come back and look at them again. But I want to leave you with, with two things before I throw out for questions. Anything that you want around careers that you're curious about, start thinking about those and you can start popping them into the chat. But I want to leave you with this thought first, and that is to channel your inner meerkat. And I've put a meerkat here because they, apart from my dog Kransky, they are my most favorite animal. Because if you ever watch them at the zoo, they are busy. They always look very busy. But if you watch them closely, they are busy observing very, very closely what is happening around them. And then they are making targeted decisions based on looking up and looking around at what is happening and what is important. And I think that we need to do the same for ourselves and our careers a little bit more in order to make sure that we are the driver and not the passenger. And so that is the first thing I want to leave you with. The second thing I want to leave you with is this. And this is something that I was reflecting on for myself, and I thought that there may be a few people who might find this valuable. Every time I have thought that I'd lost myself, and it has happened a few times, I have ended up coming back with more of myself than before. I'll say it again. Every time I've thought I'd lost myself, I ended up coming back with more of myself than before. And why I think that's so important for a sustainable career and for women in particular is because we go through so many evolutions and changes to our bodies, to our minds, to our relationships, to our lives. And it can feel heavy and really hard sometimes, and like we lose who we are. And I just want to remind you that wherever you're at in your career, whatever stage that you are in, whether you are starting out, whether you have a few more years under your belt and everything in between, we have and will continue to have tough times and challenging times and difficult times. And there are parts in there where you may feel like I've lost who I am, but know that every time you will come back to yourself with more of yourself. And the more you know of yourself, the more you can bring into your career and the value that you add and the confidence that you build. So I'm going to jump out of my screen now and come back to you. And I'm going to throw it out to questions. So any questions that you've got, I know there are a lot of you that are in co-working spaces and there's people around you so you can't talk and you've got your cameras off, but any questions that you have around anything that I've just shared or any career stuff in general, I invite you to pop it in the chat or shout it out, whatever feels right for you. For anyone else though, I'm also asking you to pop into the chat. What is one thing following this workshop? What is one thing that you want to take away and do for yourself, not for anybody else, but for yourself, to help you in your career and build a sustainable one? And when you're ready, you can pop that into the chat. Amy, you've got a question.
I do. So apologies. I probably look a little bit blue. I just had to quickly move my desk because the sun was coming up over my face. But that aside, I've really found it quite interesting when you were talking to toxic positivity, because one of my personal values, and one that I try to bring to the workplace as well, is that I like to be quite optimistic. So do you have any, I suppose, tips on how to toe that, like how to walk that line between being optimistic and solutions focused and forward thinking, and making sure you're not falling into the whole toxic positivity mindset?
Great question. I think, to me, toxic positivity and optimism are two different things. Optimism, people who are optimistic can still acknowledge that times are challenging right now. However, I also know that I can get through it. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I think the difference for me between optimism versus toxic positivity is people that are optimistic can still acknowledge and own for themselves or for the people that they're working with that this is a bit sucky right now. This situation is actually quite tough. How can we continue to support ourselves through it? Toxic positivity won't acknowledge that there's an issue and will diminish the ability of people to own that there's an issue. And I think that that's the difference, because one is allowing people to feel seen and heard and acknowledged in a difficult time. One is not. Does that answer your question a little?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you, Claire.
That's all right. Now, I think we've got a few people that have got things to run off to, but I'm going to spend some time working. We've got a few things happening in here. Start being more curious. Awesome. Stepping out of the same old or stuck feelings. Love that. I'm going to spend some time working through what most important things are. Awesome. I love that, Tina. And we've got reflecting, writing down what my definition of success is. Yes. Oh, Danielle's got a question. Do you have any advice on how to support a team member who runs high enthusiasm, which is also impacting their ability to focus on their high target outcomes without, yeah, great question. I think with high enthusiasm employees are absolutely worth their weight in gold. So we don't want to dull that shine, but I think it's really important when leading them that when we take a coaching approach to leading them, we're always finishing those conversations, making sure that there's clarity both ways around what skills, and perhaps to keep their enthusiasm high, the question is, what skills and strengths will you use to get this outcome? So they get to think about that for themselves. When will you be able to achieve this outcome? What support do you need to be able to achieve this outcome? How will I, all of those kinds of coaching questions for me have been the best tool for a high enthusiasm employee, because you're asking targeted questions and you're acting as a guardrail for them to think for themselves, which keeps motivation and engagement high. But you're also playing the kind of guardrails or the gutter guards as such to make sure that they can't go off without any accountability around what my responsibilities for delivery are as well. So that would be kind of a very quick answer to that, but I'm happy to chat, Danielle, in more depth if you want as well. What else have we got? I'm going to work on the 3 E's. Awesome. Awesome. How do you keep up with your networks? For example, I met someone at a conference. Yeah. Oh, great question. Great question, dear. Look, I am a very big fan. I'm a very big fan of closing the loop. So anyone that you meet at a conference, anybody that you hear speak at a webinar or you connect with at a webinar, or they are somebody that you see in this chat who asked a great question, close the loop on that. And sometimes it might just be connecting with them on LinkedIn and saying, I loved what you said about X, Y, and Z. It might be flicking them an email or a note and saying, you know, I heard you mention this. I just want you to know that I've actually taken that and I've acted on it. But we have a terrible tendency, and it's actually been my my overseas friends that have moved to Australia who have really brought this to my attention. And they've said, a few of them have said to me, why do people here always say, let's connect and catch up, and then we never do? And it's made me realize how terrible we actually are for saying, yeah, let's catch up, and we don't follow through. So I think to answer your question, dear, around how do you keep up your networks, close the loop. Whether it is following through on something I said I would do, or it's something as quick and as simple as connecting with somebody online and just checking in with them every 6 months. Hey, I noticed you got a new role. Looks amazing. What's happening in your world? They don't always have to be big, long, cumbersome events, but those small, impactful moments that remind people that I'm thinking of them, right? Like I often will sit and think to myself, gosh, who on my network have I not checked in with for a while? And I might just send off a text message. Haley Scott, I think she's had to jump off. Haley Scott was on this call earlier. She sent me a message this morning saying, hey, we haven't chatted for a while. I wanted you to know I was thinking of you. That's it sometimes, but you've got to be deliberate and intentional around it. But very good question, and a very important one for our networks as well. Gutter guards, got it. All right. Well, I will leave it there, ladies, because I'm conscious of time. But thank you again so much for taking the time today to jump on this call. It's so great to see a mixture of our past participants and women in leadership, all different stages of your careers on here. We know this is our first one. We're learning, we're growing. There's going to be lots more topics to come from here. So please engage with the community. The fact that it's a free platform where you can build your network, connect with other women in industry, like it would just blow my mind why we wouldn't embrace this. But if you've got any questions about anything along the way, anything you'd like to see more from us, please do not hesitate to reach out. Your engagement is our success. So we are all ears with that. Otherwise, we will let you get back to your afternoons, and hopefully we will either see you at the gala in a couple of weeks' time, or if we won't see you there, then hopefully we will see you at our next workshop in October, is our next one, Amy, with tech resources?
Then yes, it is.
Yes, tech resources. So if you've got burning questions around how to get the job of your dreams, sell yourself in interviews, build a resume that excites people, that is the workshop for you. Otherwise, ladies, take care, keep smiling, and we will be in touch with all of you very, very soon. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Claire. And thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Claire.